So we're live now. Tēnā koutou i te iwi. This is Carl Burrows here from Haka Works. I'm with Chey and Kahurangi Milne. You can see them on screen at the moment. But before we go to them, I'm just going to do a quick intro as we usually do. This is Haka in the Matrix. Why Haka is what we do. It's what we love. And also in this case, it represents our cultural knowledge that has been passed down to us. And the Matrix, well, you've seen the movie. And you know the protagonist, Neo, he makes his way through these various worlds. And in doing so, he gets to know what his life purpose is. And we do the same, and whether those worlds are geographical or cultural or spiritual or physical, we navigate our way through those in our life to find our own purpose as individuals and communities. And lucky for us as Māori, we have these taonga, this knowledge that's been passed down to us to help us do that. I'm someone that loves to share that knowledge, and also just aware that there are issues around that in the way that we do so. We do it with integrity, and I've been talking to a whole lot of people who are doing the same, and so really pleased to have Chey and Kahurangi on with us today. Before we head to them, I'm just going to do is a quick karakia and a mihi mihi, and a mihi mihi is just to say acknowledge everybody who's listening and the kaupapa. The reason why we're here today, and also our ancestors. And karakia really is just a simple way to get ourselves in the right frame of mind, so we can achieve the goals we've set ourselves for the day. So tēnā koutou, koutou rā e whakarongo mai ki tēnei uri o taranaki I mihi kauana. Tēnā anō hoki ko tai mai rungi te kaupapa te wā me ki ko ngā taonga tukuiho, ngā mātua tupuna, me ki ka huriki a rātou ngā mate o te wā. Ka huriki tērā o tātou rangatira e takoto ki rungi te marae, ki taranaki, ki puki tapu, muri raupatu tērā, ko John Wano tērā, e te pāpā, takoto. Me ki ko koutou rā, amate o te wā, haere atu rā, rātou ki a rātou, tātou ki a tātou, kia ora mai tātou. Nā ko rangi ko papa ka putaka rongo ko tāne mahuta ka tangaro ko tu mātou e ngohau me tiki ko tāpari māte. Toko no tarangi ki runga ko papa ki rā. Ka puta ko te ira tangata ki te aia o ki te ao māramati, hei, Māori ora. Kia ora. Tēnā kōrua, ka huriki a kōrua. Welcome. Nau maharama ki tēnei hōtaka. Chey and Kahurangi, kia ora rā.
Kia ora, Carl.
Tēnā koe, Carl. Hey, just before we get into it, e mihi ana ki a koe me tēnei kaupapa o tātou. Haka Works, me o pāpāhotanga I roto I ngā wiki nei, ki te au, you had some big rangatira on this pāpāhotanga o tātou before us, so we're pretty lucky to be on here. And it also casts me back to a little podcast we did a few years ago on Aotearoa Creative.
That's right, yeah, I remember.
Hoia moa, tēnā koe, tēnā tātou.
Kia ora. Hey, just want to say really pleased to have you on. And no, you're right, it's been a really interesting journey over the last couple of weeks because we've had some amazing people and just a whole range of thoughts. So, we went pretty deep last week with Jamie Tuta, and we've had some great times with, just talking about experiences with other people who've done some work with Haka Works around the world over the last few years. So it's been really good. But I just thought of you guys because, well, just of the work that you've been doing, and also, of course, the pedigree that you have with Kapa Haka, and just the opportunity, especially with Matua Trevor, just spend some time with him over in the UK, and it's just been really nice to connect. But I want you to, I'd like to hear a little bit about your upbringing and what it means to be Maori, and I think we'll go to the north first. We'll go to Chey and just
make our way down.
A little bit about you, Chey.
Ka pai. No te tai toke rau. E rangi I tupu taone mai ahau mātou I tērā wā. So we grew up in Manurewa and Otara. Went to school all of my life in Otara. But was still, we were in that sort of 80s, early 90s. There's a song out at the moment called Revolution, and we were kind of, I was my mum and our whānau were pretty strong into the revolution back in the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah.
And so kohanga reo, went to kura Māori. There weren't too many kura kaupapa back in those days, especially for our south side as well. So went to kura Māori and high school, and but that was me. But in terms of, because this is Haka Works, in terms of our kapahaka pedigree, me pera pe te ko. Actually, no, and then I was then I left high school, but my mum and all of my whānau and all my baby sisters, I'm the oldest in our whānau by quite a while, and they moved all up north, and they kind of left me by myself a little bit, and then I was like, no, this sucks. so I quickly moved up north, and that's where I would say te whakawhenua I ahau me aku mahi katoa, taku reo, you know, because for an urban Māori, it's a little bit hard, this notion of Māoritanga. A lot of theory with not much practical. And,
Whereabouts, Chey?
Huh?
Whereabouts up north?
Yeah, so our whānau, we moved to a nice spot in Hokianga called Mitimiti on the west coast, or far north, and then from there our whānau moved to another awesome spot, not far, about an hour drive of north of Whangarei, called Rotorua. And so we stayed there, and that's where I moved, and I lived there with our whānau. We stayed there for a while. My whānau lived there for just over 10 years, and I was in between Moeroa, Kaikohe, Whangarei, and then Tāmaki again, and then that's when I met Kahurangi, and then I must have from up north and then come south, and then never went back. But koira oku kōrero mo te taha ki a mātou, and oku kōrero.
What about your kapahaka? And Tāmaki
and yeah, so kapahaka, it's quite odd, eh? You spoke about Koro Trevor and stuff. I grew up again in the era of videotapes. Haka freaks was a common term when I was growing up, and we were definitely one of those tamariki. So every 2 years we'd get a new set of tapes, and we would guard them with our lives. And
no hard drives or MySpace back
you
then.
know, so it was a special thing. So I grew up in Southside. We were, you know, I guess looking back, we had a healthy kapahaka environment. We had in high school in particular, but I grew up around kapahaka. My whānau were doing kapahaka and Tāmaki. My mum was always the kapahaka tutor at some high school group or whatever, and tera. And then, but then as I got older, went and joined, thought I was so cool that I'd try and join manu wakahuia. And then they were like, no, you're a manuhuia. no, boy. So yeah. But
it's always good to dream, though.
Yeah, it was always good to dream. And then, and then from there, that was when I decided to move home. And then I only spent a couple of years in Manuhuia, and then from then it was Tai Tokero all away. So then we were just in our whānau Ropu, Te Puo, and we've been there ever since. And then just recently, with our merging of our whānau team Te Puo, and on our other side of our other whānau, Hokianga, with Puangarua. So that's my, and I've stood with Kahua once or twice as well.
Yes.
And Te Aroa.
Okay.
He's done a Te Aroa stint once.
Yeah.
Awesome. I just want to say, you know, I mean, most of us are brought up in the cities these days, you know, and to have someone like you as a role model in terms of your reo and what you've been able to capture, and then to go back home. I think you're right. It's important to go back home, even if we're brought up in the cities, because it just cements that connection back to where we are from and those relationships with the people, you know. Otherwise, it's just a lot of, I mean, this is quite harsh to say, but I think otherwise it's easy to talk about but not really understand it in a real sense unless you've been home, I think.
Totally.
But it's a similar journey to myself. Brought up in Upper Hutt as a child, and then you know, my mum didn't really want to go back home because it wasn't that pleasant, her upbringing. But actually, you know, we all ended up going back, the whole lot of us, and it was an important part of that journey for us as well. Okay, ka huri ki a koe, Kahurangi, kia ora.
Yes. No, pai nei kōrero, and it was when I met Chey, it was, you know, I think
Wow.
Yeah, okay. All right. No, it was well. We had quite the opposite sort of upbringing, where I was born and raised on my papa kainga no Hinamitu. You know, it was quite nice actually be able to say brought up on my marae, because that's literally what it was like. Our whare is here, and our marae, our three marae around us in Ohinamitu on my mum's side in Ngāti Whakauē. So I had that beautiful upbringing there. But my kapahaka life is within Ngāti Rangi Wiwahi on my papa's side. And I just feel really lucky that we had the upbringing that we did. There were, you know, mum and dad had me at quite a later age in their life, in their early 40s. So they had kind of been through their life, and then I was the surprise at the end there. So they were well and truly into their kapahaka career with Ngāti Rangi Wiwahi, having tutored. I mean, they started their tutoring career early with the iwi and the group there. We were traveling overseas when I was 8 months old. We were touring around London and Europe at that time. So my life was Sundays, every weekend out at Awaho, by the river, kapahaka, then the week was in the pa in Ohinamitu, and living that life. So 92 was when mum won her first female leadership. So I think I was 5 at that time, and then she won it again when I was about 10 in 96. And prior to me even being born, Dad had won male leadership too. I think he was one of the first.
I think he was the it wasn't at the first nationals,
no,
but it was
when
the
they
first.
Introduced, yeah.
He likes to give the joke. He likes to say, I was the first. I thought I'd give it to other people afterwards. So,
Yeah.
92 was that Hawara? Is that right?
It was
No, that was
Ngāruā
Waikato.
Wāhia.
Waikato. Okay.
Hawara was 94.
94.
So those are some of my earliest memories of kapahaka. Was 92, almost where you can sort of remember, you know, being that age. But that was just our life. Every week I'd see mum and dad. We had a shed at the back that was called the kapahaka shed, and it had just everything in it. It had poise, it had rako. It was so, and even in our lounge when Chey came to our house for the first time, we had all of these used to look like a museum.
It was quite it was quite awesome and intimidating at the same time. You know, you walk in and you're like, oh my god, and you also like go, shit, I don't want to touch anything. So it was quite awesome, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, you know, well, luckily for me, there were a few touch points with me and in your whānau, and one was 94 in Hawara. And just, I mean, for me, I was just observing you guys, and I had the tape, and you know, I can't even see it now because it's so blurry. But that was an amazing bracket, and just, you know, certainly you guys stood out for me back then, and also that's been carried on, you know, right through, and you guys coming over to the UK quite a few times.
Yes.
With Rangi Wiwahi, and also the Tarawa group that came over about, was it 5-6 years ago now?
The Diamond Jubilee,
When Chey and I,
yeah.
2012, I think.
Yeah,
and,
and
11, yeah.
And we've been lucky to have Matua Trevor staying at our place a few of those times. So
that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so it's been really cool. And yeah, I'm just thinking that journey. Well, you guys met, and there's this journey that you went on to become, you know, in terms of your business. But before I do that, there's just a whole lot of people saying hello on here, so we're just going to acknowledge them. So there's Kyla Russell from down in Kaitahu. She's saying ngamihi o te pō, mai karitane, and tangi mitua takie, tēnā koutou katoa, Karepa Wall. I think Karepa's down in Wellington.
Yeah,
tino moio māua ki a Karepa.
Ka pai.
Whanaunga ki a koe, ne?
Yeah, ai te kōrero kare no ki a tūtaki. Bianca Taute, she's up your way. She was one of our Ranana people.
Yes, right.
Yeah. Te Manua Ora Maurako, she's Kia ora Carl from Brisbane, and Uenuku, beautiful, amazing. So that's thank you for, I just want to say thank you for leaving your messages. And if you're listening, we'd love to hear more from you. If you have any questions,
Absolutely.
just drop them down and we can ask Chey and Kahurangi.
And also, I can see you've actually got quite a strong Tai Tokero influence watching. You've got Whatitiri Te Wake, who's a cousin of mine, and then you've got my first cousin, Pari Matthews, and then I just seen that my mum joined. So it's a final affair.
Awesome. All right. Hey, just tell us about you two. And I know you're married and you've got children and running a business together. So how did this all come together?
What do you?
Where should we start?
What you want to know where we met, or do you want to talk about? Just the business side of things?
I know it's a journey, really, in terms of working together, and you have to manage your relationship in a different way. But I'm just interested in how that sort of come together, and I think running a business together is not always easy, but if you have the opportunity and it's because you both love the same thing, then I think we're pretty privileged to be able to do that. So
Yeah. No, paitera. So I think what's really lucky about Chey and I is that when we met, we somehow were interested in the same things, which was awesome. So te reo was a big thing, kapahaka was a big thing, and then we both just happened to, I think Chey was, at that time, he was already very much into, you were a presenter at Pukana at that time, and I had just left university where I'd done my communications, media, marketing tohu, and I was just kind of going into my career. We had just met, and not too long after we just met, we got pregnant with our first baby. And so I guess in terms of the spaces in which we were working in, it was media.
And speaking of kapahaka, because this is Haka Works, we actually met at the Koroneihana at a Koroneihana party.
As all Māori relationships, Māori party, a kapahaka party. I don't think it was a kapahaka party because there wasn't a guitar there, if I don't remember. But anyway, so we just happened to really be interested in the same things, and it's nice when that just that happens. And then we were kind of doing our own thing in terms of our career, but actually I just started at TVNZ. Chey was still at Pukana, so I was just getting into my career after finishing my tohu, and your hapu. So although that didn't, being hapu doesn't necessarily stop things, but it did put a bit of a spanner in the works for us. She was born, and then we decided not too long after she was born that we were going to move down to Rotorua to raise her. So that happened.
Yeah, and then I was sort of commuting here and there.
Yeah.
Got another job back in Auckland. Was working up there for a couple of years. Then Kahu moved up with us, and then we lived in Auckland for a little bit longer. And then we decided that wasn't. Well, it's not that we decided. We were lucky.
Yeah.
I want to say, we've been terribly lucky throughout this whole process. One, to have the support that we've had from our whānaus. I just see my mum is joined. So, from our parents, both Koro Trev, my whānau, we've been lucky to be able to have
options, really. Yeah.
Not like some of our other whānau who don't, So when we came back to Rotorua, we came back on a holiday. And we just kind of never left. And when I say that, I think, God, that's whakahihi of you to say that, but that's how it was. And then we never left. And then so we started up Arataua, our business, not long after that, in early 2013.
Yeah, it wasn't like when we started Arataua, it was kind of, I had been working in the tertiary space, and Chey was still doing presenting and whatnot. But then we realized that perhaps we could branch off into other things, because the reality is being a presenter it's not a long-term thing, and it's only it's like being an actor where if you're not a really good Hollywood actor, it's sporadic. So that we were figuring out, okay, maybe we need to change it up a bit. So Chey was doing contracting, I was still working full-time in other spaces.
Yeah.
So we started.
And it was also really hard because we were both doing a wide variety, a range of things, from presenting to emceeing to directing. Then reo, I was quite heavily into the reo side of things. So we were doing a lot of translations and stuff. So it was kind of just a big mash of whatever we could get, really. So that was kind of another reason why we started the business was just to
Yeah.
put it all under one umbrella
Yeah.
and mamake. And then, so yeah.
So we started that in 2013, and that's when we were in Ohinamatu staying at my papa kainga on Rotorua Street. And it was so nice to be able to be at home. One for me, personally, it was very lucky that Chey was all good and keen with that, but that we were able to raise atareta like I was on her marae and her papa kainga. And Rotorua is a very Maori community. The reo is, we were really really committed to raising atareta with te reo Māori as her first language, and te poi poi I tērā. And so we started Rotorua. It was just us two. It was sort of a side project, to be fair. We just built over time. And so 2013, 14, 15 came on. We started getting a bit more. 2015 is probably a point where we decided that we wanted to become like a production company where we would prop to get television shows on Māori TV. So that started that movement there. I was still trying to do my full-time mahi and be Chey's manager on the side and do his admin while he was exploring the directing side of television.
Can I just jump in? What is, was there, it sounds like you got all these common crossover points, in terms of your skill sets and your interests and what you love and each other. And but was there a point where you thought, hey, there's a gap in the market, I suppose, for better, for lack of better words, or there's something that people that we've got that we're able to share that people need? Is there a point where that happened?
And probably
to be fair, I would think that we've only just started to realize that there's a bit of a gap in the market now, and that what we're doing is actually it's very niche, but it keeps us pretty, the haere ana, kānanga raiti. So that's been really good, and we've only just started to realize that potential in the last recent, last year or so. So, but before then, we were just kind of we were again really lucky. We're again really lucky to be able to have some awesome clients and a bit of luck here and there, and again some awesome support by friends and whānau and different businesses, and it's just been one of these things that have evolved, and purely because it sort of had to get bigger, we sort of had to get bigger. It wasn't like we sort of planned, but we didn't plan it, but we also did as well. And we had an awesome session where we kind of laid out some goals, and we're sort of strategic. It would be like, we want to do this and this and this, but those were a lot further along down the pipeline. But it's kind of planned out quite well. And again, tino koama, ko pera.
I think what it was is that we were trying to establish ourselves as a media production company, because we realized that, okay, we've got some television, we've got a bit of Chey was teaching himself videography and whatnot. So that was at that 2015 point. In 2018, we started picking up some not significant, but worthwhile contracts and creating content for television and digital. And then probably around about then we realized, oh, hey, actually, we've got media, a bit of media, but also some marketing skills between us. Let's actually officially make that what the business is now. And so Rotorua 2.0 and 2 years ago was when we decided to go, this is what we are, this is what we do, this is what we offer, which is media, marketing and communications, and create that into what we sort of label as a one-stop shop option in creating Māori content. And often we get clients that come to us through the media door. They want videography, but then they realize that we do the marketing and the social media and digital marketing stuff. So then they get ads on, or they come in that door as well, and then we do video for them. So
we can provide them, because these days everyone wants a video. If they want some comms, they want to help with their messaging, even if it's to to help with their social media. There's still going to be video content that needs to go on there. There's still going to need to be some sort of we need to plan how with some content calendar or whatever, so they all talk to one another. So it's actually been quite a nice hononga.
So I just want to come back to what you were saying, Chey, about you're being lucky, and I think I understand this. I think there's a lot of luck involved in these sort of journeys, but also I think you've got to be open to luck as well, and you've got to be open and generous and invite it into your life. So I think it goes two ways there. I also think I don't know. I just wanted to ask, as moving on to the business side of things, and there's been a lot of change in technology and communications. And I mean, I've been out of New Zealand for a long time, about 20 years, even though I go back every year. What are the changing expectations of clients? I mean, what are what are people looking for? And you work with mainly Māori organizations, and are people embracing technology now to be able to communicate?
Absolutely. And I think COVID has really significantly ramped that up. And it should, and it has to. One of the most valuable marketing tools is video. So that's the best way to get messages across. And most, audiences actually want to engage with a video more than they do something written or what have you. But we're all scrambling to get people's attention because it's such a hard space to get into. But yeah, how would you?
I reckon while there's different platforms and while there's all these new technologies that come out, I te mutunga o te rā, content and the type of content that you pump out, if it's dumb, then still doesn't matter how flash it is, not many people are going to be keen on it. So I guess and I guess coming back to your point about being lucky, sure, I say we've been lucky, fortunate to have support and stuff, but it's also about passion as well. And if you're passionate about your kaupapa, then there's some things that you're willing to just push through, and some things that you go, no, we don't want to do that or whatever. So we've maybe that's been part of the luck as well, that we're passionate, and then ka piri mai e tahi atu I te mea kei te kite, there's a hononga with those mātāpoma, with those values, and they can see us doing this, and maybe our clients are like, oh, that's an awesome kaupapa. That's an awesome kaupapa, and we want to do some mahi with them and vice versa. So we've been lucky in that sense that we've been like what you said before, that our values are the same, and kei te māua o tira mātou ki o mātou mātāpomo, and that's been essentially our business card. That's been our main marketing tool for ourselves. So coming back to your technology and stuff, sure, we live streaming, we like to tutu with the live streaming. We're getting better and better with all of the tools that we use. My gear cupboard is getting a lot more full these days, which is all cool. But I te mutunga o te rā, I think it comes back to the content, and again it comes back to that passion. And nowadays, because of technology, people are able to see and feel passion a lot easier. And if there's no mena kaore te ahu mai konei, and kaore I te hanga ki konei, then I think people can tell that I think that's a bit dumb. So it's coming back to, this is why some of our clients want to come to us, because they may be a little bit hoha of working with a Pākehā entity who doesn't actually get them, who doesn't have any Māori speaking staff, who can't just go and do an interview with, I don't know, their CEO, their nanny, and their mokopuna all at the same time, and be able to manaki that kaupapa. And it's nothing new at all. I don't think it's a new thing. And luckily, in Te Aroa, the Te Aroa people have been used to manaki, because through tourism and stuff for years, so used to looking after different kaupapa and looking after in any way, shape or form that they can. And that's what I reckon Arataua does, is when people come to us, when clients come to us, we try and manaki their kaupapa. We try and you know, fulfill ngā manako as hard as as best as we can, and we try and āwhina our clients to get whatever message is that they want to get out to our iwi, and that's been us really.
Good point. I just love hearing those values come through. You know, you're talking about your values in terms of your business and manaakitanga and awhina and matapono. You know, it's just lovely to see those coming through in your and just guiding who you are and how you treat people. So I think it's an exciting time for Māori business because, you know, I was talking to Jamie Tuta last week, and just, you know, I went to law school and I worked in corporations, and, you know, you sort of start to adopt those ideas, and they're all around us in terms of the bottom line is, you know, shareholder return, maximizing shareholder return. I mean, it's not completely that, of course, but and you bring this into your work when you start to work within Māori organizations naturally. But for us to see more and more Māori businesses adopting, you know, and not adopting, just being who they are,
yeah,
you know, is exciting, and I just love seeing that with you guys. Just a thing about technology is, you know, I think COVID's forced me to buy all this gear, and half of it I can't use yet. Wasted so much money.
YouTube,
Yeah.
That's part of the problem. You're watching too much YouTube, and I need that.
But I agree. I love, well, video is getting more important, like you say, and people can see whether or not you're being tech or true to yourself through the screen, and I think there's a lot of opportunities. Now, one of the kaupapa of your business, the mission, I suppose, was to promote Māori culture ki te ao to the world. And yeah, I just want to get your take on that, because I suppose I just want to know, what do you think, just from your experience traveling overseas, or where you are from Rotorua, what are some of the things that the world needs to know about Māori culture?
Kahurangi can speak about the international pair. I don't know, but te whakatairanga I te ahurea Māori ki te ao, for me, it doesn't necessarily mean internationally. For me, it means it's being able to be Māori and being able to whakatairanga I a koe anō, ki roto I tō anō ao. You know, I guess it's about being able to do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean whakatairanga promote Māori in Brazil or wherever it is you want to go. But I guess no, I know that's what it says on the. That's what the translation is, you know, to the world. But ki te ao ki au is about Aotearoa, is about is about awakening ourselves, te iwi Māori, to be able to believe in ourselves, to be able to say, yeah, we can use Māori, we can be Māori in Aotearoa, because if we can't be Māori in Aotearoa, where can we be Māori? E rā tu āhuranga katoa. And then I think if we can do that here, then the rest of the world is piece of cake, to be fair.
So Chey, are you saying that we need to work with ourselves first and work on ourselves to understand and be more secure in ourselves as Māori first? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, tērā. A few years ago, when we were, always goes back to this as our whānau, there was a Herald article on Kahurangi and I raising atareta in te reo Māori, and it got a huge amount of flack for by te ao o Aotearoa nei, for our choice to go 100% into reo Māori. And so, you know, we don't necessarily need to look across the ocean for issues that I'm guessing I'm getting lost here, but ki au, e pai ana kia tīmata I konei, tō tātou ao Māori, ki tēnei ao I Aotearoa nei, and then once we have a solid foundation, mā reira pēr, ka puta ki te whai au ki te ao mārama. But, that's my whakaaro.
Yeah.
Babe?
I just want to say, it's an argument I've heard before, and I think it's valid. It's certainly, there's a lot of work that we need to do at home to build ourselves up to that point. Yeah. Well,
I
is
think,
there anything you wanted to? Yeah.
Another piece. Sorry, babe. Another piece. My dad actually told me this is that back in the days, we were always taught ko te manu e kai ana I te miro nōna te ngahere, ko te manu e kai ana I te mātauranga nōna te ao. And we're always taught to maybe go branch outside and seek, and go for the whatever it is, so you can. The world is your oyster type thing, but I nei, kei te kite tātou, that actually, ko te manu e kai ana I te miro is probably a lot well off these days, and it's ahua tau ana I roto I aia anō. So maybe me hoki tātou ki te kai te miro, and maybe stop worrying about the rest of the planet, and hoki mai ki a tātou anō. And mā tātou anō tātou e kōrero, mā tātou anō tātou e whakatairanga, mā tātou anō tātou e whakahaere.
Ka pai. What about you, Kahurangi? Pihi o tō whakaaro.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we do is that we create content, and content will sit and go anywhere. It could be viewed here as well as across the world, in Murupara, wherever. So because that's what we do, we create content, or we help build messages, or with our marketing and our communication services, those are the mediums, and those are our services as such. But koira pea te waka or arataua, and that waka could go anywhere. And so our mission is to ensure kei te u, kei te e tika he pono a mātou mahi, but that and it's kind of a reminder to us that everything that we do can just be seen globally, and so we need, or be seen globally in Murupara, be seen globally wherever, if it was to get that far. But because it's content, it has the ability to do that. It doesn't just sit in a piece of paper or what have you. So he mea nui kia tika te whakatairanga I te reo, me kounga te reo, me kounga ngā mahi, but I think sometimes we get a bit scared about the way that we package our Māori content, but we obviously want it to be entertaining and to be palatable, but we want it to be done right. And so I guess that's probably around the whole promoting te ao Māori to the world, as well as, so just say tāpiri pia ki tērā kōrero, ka haere ngātahi. Yeah.
No, I agree. I think you can't really help it once you stick it on the internet to get it out. It's out there, and people find it, and people find it around the world. And I think the interesting thing about the mahi that we do is that, and just realizing by putting something on the internet and during the time of COVID, that it reaches people who have an interest that you just wouldn't expect in places in Africa and Brazil, and and obviously in places which are familiar with Māori culture just through rugby. For example, so there's a lot of interest, and I think there is pressure too on you getting it right, which is a hard thing to say, but easy to get it wrong.
That's right. That's right.
And it might not even necessarily be wrong, but sometimes out of context, just in video, it can look wrong, or it could look lame, or look embarrassing. From especially. Yeah, when you look at it from a home perspective. So all those things need to be taken into account, and I understand that. At the same time, I think we need to be brave, we need to have people who are out there.
And pushing it.
Yeah, totally. And I also want to just chime in and say, ko arataua, we're like the third, maybe even fourth, maybe even fifth wave of whānau and kamupene Māori in this space, and kei te whai noiho, or how to make it whai noiho, rangi, kei te whai mātou I te whiore o era kua para I te huarahi mō mātou, mō tātou, and there's a whole lot of people who have opened up doorways purely for them going first, and showing what can be done, and then ko tā mātou kei te tāpiri ki tērā, or kei te ako mai tērā. So it's kind of cool to be able to follow and like what you say, learn of different people and stuff. It's been cool.
So just on that, I suppose, the innovative aspect. I have seen to YouTube.
Yes.
I think it's brilliant, and it's just so exciting seeing young, confident Maori, really young, out there doing some amazing things with our reels. So do you just want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. The interesting thing about that is that it started with a little whānau video of our girls, Atareta, who's our daughter, and Te Hakura, our niece. Shay's sister was babysitting them while we were having a whānau hui.
Was that a kapa haka hui?
Haka hui.
Yes.
And set up the iPhone, and they did a little challenge making a chicken sandwich. And because i te kōrero Māori rāua, that went viral, and that started to YouTube because they would, sometimes our kids love to watch YouTube, but their Māori kupu for YouTube was NewTube, because it's what we would say, oh, mātaki YouTube, and they thought we were saying YouTube. So and because they could only speak Māori, some of those vowels, so that's why they like to NewTube. And so for them, just any video was a NewTube. Was a NewTube. So, kei te mahi NewTube.
So that's how YouTube came about.
Yeah, and so that started 3 or 4 years ago, and it i tino puta whānau i tērā kiriata poto, and for us we're like, oh, what's the big deal? It's just 2 Māori girls speaking Māori and making a sandwich. Like, we didn't, obviously, and many other Māori whānau just like us who have their kids and nieces and nephews doing that as well. It's nothing big, but because I guess te reo Māori isn't, perhaps, I don't know what it was, to be honest.
I think one of the there's some good things about that was that, one, they were very cute. There was like a 2 or 3-year-old Te Hakura maybe, and just under 5 was Atareta or something like that. So that helped. 2 was non-threatening. Yeah. So it wasn't like it was some kaumātua and kuia going whatever, or Kahurangi and I trying to speak Māori, and it was just these 2 girls
being themselves, being 2 Māori girls,
being totally normal, children, moaning about one another, fighting with one another, making little jokes, and it happened to be in te reo Māori, so that cut through. Yeah. And then and I guess that comes back to our te whakatairanga i te ahurea Māori ki te ao. It wasn't, they weren't trying to be anything, and my sister just put it up on her Facebook page, and next minute, douche.
Yeah. And that birthed YouTube. Yeah. And then we were able to get television shows for it. And as a whānau, it's kind of, we often say to ourselves, is like the minute that Atareta says to us, or the minute that Te Hakura and Atareta say, we don't want to do this, or Atareta, if she said, Mama kare au te hia mahi tēnei, that's it. But they actually enjoy it. They get to have fun. They're really, like we talked about, lucky before. These girls are very, very lucky. But they do have to work as well. We've noticed in this, we're up to our 3rd season now of Team YouTube. And we've noticed that, it's, they've come into this opportunity, but it's...
Yeah, and also like, these girls are quite lucky because... spoke about Kahurangi and essentially their whānau business when Kahurangi was growing up was Māori performing arts. And I would say that our whānau business now is media. And same with my sisters. My sister is a presenter. The other sister, Te Hakura's mum, works behind the camera. She's a producer. So we all work in television and media, and so our children have grown up just seeing that as quite normal. So that's been a natural progression for them.
And I guess for Atareta, seeing mum and dad presenting, what we notice as well is that she's doing her own little thing. We don't have to tell her or direct her very much. She knows how to fill the gaps, and she knows how to, she'll be like this, and then toru ruatahi, and she's on. She kind of just knows. We don't have to tell her.
In fact, we have to tell her to hoi hoi.
So that's been a really beautiful project for us, and
but sorry, bro. The powerful thing about the YouTube is that it just provides a window for a lot of our whānau, because we were not the first whānaus to do this whole raise your kids all in te reo Māori. There were quite a few people before us who did this as well.
Absolutely.
And so we were just kind of following off their example and learned some of their things. And then so what Tanutube is doing is we were lucky that we had opportunities to be able to see and meet some of these people who were doing that. And what Tanutube has done has essentially done the same thing, but to Te iwi Māori. And it's been able to show Te iwi Māori that there is on a national scale, that there is actually value in learning your language. There's value in te ako I te reo Māori. And I know people talk about this, Māori TV or te kare, you can see people on the camera, te mea, but these are actually children just being themselves, and then other children are wanting to and singing along and these resources and stuff, and it's actually quite awesome, to be fair, when you go to Wānanga and you see, or you just walk down the street or something and you see whānau singing Paki Paki Mai or whatever. It's actually mo te ngākau he atahua tira i te hua o e rā mahi.
And some of the comments that we've had from different parents are this has given me a reason, or this has really inspired me to put my tamariki in kohanga reo or in kura kaupapa. Like I've had a couple of parents message us directly to say that we want our tamariki to be able to have te reo Māori like atareta and te hākura. And because our tamariki see that, and although we don't have the language and we were a little bit, skeptical or scared, or just saying that these two Māori girls as examples, rather than matua or pakeke,
And also, mainstream kura. Like I've been going into schools and stuff like that for forever, and mainstream kura are using Paki Paki Mai as their, school song and stuff like that. It's quite a weird phenomenon, really.
Well, and then like the girls have hit over 2 million on YouTube, so we're like, wow.
Oh my God, it's amazing. And I just think it captures that story, really captures what you were saying before about, whakatairanga, te ahurea Māori te ao. And, this is our world, and we're showing it to ourselves, and people are inspired by it. And so the other thing too is just makes me happy to see how fluent, they are with being in front of the camera, with technology. And I see it with my own children. I mean, they're a bit older now. They started to get shy from the camera, but but I just how easy they take on technology without even, it just flows. It's just another app. It's just another program. So just love hearing about that. Hey, just want to talk about kapa haka while we're at it, and there was an announcement last week about the matatini being postponed. I just wanted to see what your thoughts are, and what are people saying in Rotorua about that?
Well, Chey has his own little show, Haki Yarns, that they seem to get a bit of traction on. You guys had your little yarn about it, and
I have e what, taku aroha nui ki a koe. There was quite a significant tainui announcement today,
yes.
And we were thinking about doing a Haka Yarns tonight. I said, no, bro, no, we've been booked
Haka
in.
Works tonight,
We've been
Haka
booked
Yarns.
in already for another podcast, another live stream. And I can't go tonight. Maybe I'll popo. But it's a weird one, bro? Because I mean, our Ropu, our whānau Ropu were one of the teams to not get selected. But out of this weird sort of invisible sort of pressure or whatever it was, I don't even know what it was, but to not make Te Matatini. And so now regions are actually all starting to just choose their teams to go through to Te Matatini. And that's what happened
today with
in Napo and in Puta i te Rane, with the Tainui groups going through. So even though Te Matatini has been postponed, the cutoff date is still uana ki taku mōhio, in terms of the cutoff date, in terms of having to have your groups. These are the groups representing our rohe type thing. Still early September, whenever it is. So it's not much has really changed.
That's not weird.
It is. And I think that's probably what we're all feeling about this. Like we
Yeah.
understand the pressures of COVID and what that has meant for not only Māoridom and Te Matatini, but the world.
Yeah.
I think we forget that sometimes, that our kapahaka mind and our matatini mind, no, we're the only ones that are affected by this, but no, the world is affected by this. So we understand, I think, as Māori, that these decisions about events and whether they go ahead or not need to be made. But because we're so precious about kapahaka and we're so precious about te matatini,
Passionate,
kia ora, that's probably a better word. But like, okay, is, I guess any decision wasn't going to please everybody. A decision had to be made, but the way that it has had to affect all of the regions around the country has meant that some, if we take the Taitokero one, for example, there was a pressure decision that was made that perhaps didn't need to be made at that time. Then you've got Tainui who were going ahead with their regionals, but then have since, because of the announcement, perhaps decided that we'll go with the selection choosing option. And then there's, we've got our Australia team. So everybody is affected by this. And now we're going to have a year's break, which is, I actually hear a lot of people being really relieved by that. A summer for some people for the first time in how many years, concerts and whatnot. So it's got to be a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but it's probably just the way that it is affecting our regionals and a few of the kapa who almost had a chance to get up there for the first time, but next time.
Yeah. I guess the other thing though, it's just that because there's no kapahaka and because e u tonu ana te rā kati, and now it's been postponed to 2022, Matatini?
Aye.
2022, I guess that just leaves a big black hole of no kapahaka. And I guess people are still very passionate and people still want to do and watch and feel kapahaka.
I've heard a lot of people say, I want some fresh kapahaka to watch. So it's like, what are we going to do in this year? I mean, a lot of people, people are saying have a break, of course, but so many people are like, but we still want to watch or do kapahaka.
Well, because the reality is we would have just been at the tail end of the kapahaka season now. We would have finished all the regionals if COVID hadn't happened. We would have had secondary schools as well coming up. So we would have been fed all of this kapahaka and then going into next year and
nothing, nada.
But now we've just got nothing. So
I think a 6-month break is enough, isn't it? And we start getting back into it again. But it is a real way of life for a lot of people. And that's going to be gone for a while. People are going to go, what are we going to do with our lives?
Well, and even here at Rotorua, like we, obviously tourism has been, our tourism sector has been significantly, and of course you know that. But we've got all of our whānau who were doing concerts, performing to our tourists. That is no longer. So there's no feeding of the kapahaka ngākau at the moment, with not even any concerts here in Rotorua or whakangaho, kaupapa. Those have all been cancelled as well. So it'd be good if we could have a think about if there was a demand or a need, how we might fill that in a different way. I think because the competitive way that we've structured things, we could do something a whole lot different. There's opportunity. Even
if it was just something to feed the morale of the whānau.
Get everybody up and involved and without the pressure of the competition.
Koia.
But competition drives people.
Competition brings people together though.
Unfortunately.
Hey, Kahurangi, you've been overseas quite a few times with kapahaka, and obviously we're based over in London, and there's a lot of opportunities here for taking for young people to come over and do hakas over this side of the world. Not right now, of course, but just just some advice that you'd give to. Well, just first, I want to hear a little bit about your experiences, and I just must say right now that one of the highlights of my life was standing with you guys for like 10 minutes doing haka on the side at the back, and wearing, feeling like I was part of Rangi Wewehi. I haven't got a photo of that, so if any of you guys haven't have a photo of that performance, that'll be great.
Yes.
People don't really believe me when I tell that story.
We took videos, eh?
Yeah, I'm sure we did.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, just a little bit about your experience traveling overseas, and then just want to know what sort of would you advise young people to follow in your footsteps, I suppose, in that regard?
There's that saying in our whānau, and I'm sure in a few other whānaus, have pipi will travel, and that was certainly something that that lived in our whānau. Kapa haka was the reason why we were able to get across the world. And if I had a map and I was able to pinpoint the places that we've been, it's crazy, and it's just, again, so fortunate and so lucky to have had that opportunity. But it was a privilege, and it was a taonga that we certainly tried to look after and mori, and my mum and dad set that example for us all the time, and ensuring that we were grateful for what the opportunity was, but to look after kapa haka because it'll look after you. The way that, even right down to the very basics of looking after your kakahu, looking after your taonga, not treating it as like it's just, what have you. And mum and dad were very strict with me in ensuring that we, my brother and I and our whānau, that we did the simple things. So if we were traveling overseas, you wouldn't leave your hotel room a mess. You would, even Uncle Howard, he would always say, don't leave your hotel room a mess, look after certain things. And so those are the very basics. And so in terms of having traveled around the world, I remember starting school late because we were in Spain for the World Expo, where we lived in Seville for like a couple of months, and we lived in a whare. So I didn't start school till late. And then I remember not starting high school till a couple of weeks after, because we were in Germany. So like I think about all of these milestones, and I'm like, oh, that's right, because we were overseas doing kapa haka. And I think the first time I had I'm in a pipu in a pari is in Spain, in Seville, for the 92 World Expo, I think it was. And then actually having stood with Rangiwiwihi, I got my own bodice when I was 9, when we went to Samoa after Rangiwiwihi won the 1996 festival.
Yep.
And they represented Aotearoa at the South Pacific Festival that still was supposed to happen in Hawaii this year, I think. And so those are some of the points where I was starting to make my way in performing with the senior group, but still as a tamaiti. And then throughout my high school years, not attending school sometimes because we were able to go overseas and perform and do kapa haka. So my advice to rangatahi, once things settle down across the world, is that these opportunities are they are there, and like from the get-go, if you look after kapa haka and you look after that taonga, it'll look after you. And pipi will travel. But some little mātāpono that mum and dad were always really strict again on us is, be punctual, be respectful of other cultures as well, because that's the thing, is you're taking your culture to another land, and so not going there whakahihi and that you dominate that space, is that it's actually, as you would expect someone coming onto your whenuas, how to treat that. And then so when you're thinking about, okay, we're going to go over there and do a haka pōhiri, well, no, does that make sense? Because actually, no wai te whenua. And so those are some of the questions that you always need to be asking yourself when you do go overseas and do kapa haka, is taking ngā mātāpono te kāinga and toa ke whānau as well. Hey, arataki i a koe, because it can be a scary thing when you go overseas as well, but it's a privilege very much so.
Awesome. Beautiful words. Hey, I want to finish. Chey, just one question I had, and we get a lot of people coming over from home, coming here, and they come and join Ngāti Rānana because they miss their people, but actually a lot of them are brought up in the city and they don't really have the opportunity to do kapa haka, so they learn their kapa haka here in London. And they're sort of shocked that it's great because they learn so much about themselves and they're able to reconnect with their culture, but they're always thinking about, on their return home, how do they start connecting with kapa haka back at home. And what would your advice be to them? Because it's not that easy, is it? Just jumping into a group, you just can't turn up to matarai and say, oh, here I am,
I'm blessed and cursed with the ability to be able to just do that.
I think it's the confidence. I don't know if it's the ability, confidence of the man.
No, but I totally agree. You know, and even still, when we go to some of our wāhi, iti tai tokerau, iti kāinga, you know, it's a little bit. Sometimes, you know, those connections. If you've been born and raised in a different area or whatever, going home to find those connections, it does take time. But you know, I reckon that actually, because of kapahaka is the best way to reconnect, because you're actually going, and teams these days have put out a tono on Facebook. You know, we got our first muster at Te Whānau next Saturday, no mai haere mai ki te katoa. I guess the biggest struggle is just getting through the door. But as soon as you're in the door, kei roto koe I ngā ringa o te whānau. And so I guess, you know, sure that can be quite hard, but as soon as you can get in the door into any kapahaka team, and I would actually stress and recommend that people start to reconnect back home through kapahaka. And I would recommend that people stop performing in urban areas or places that they're not from, and just go home and perform in places that they are from, or that they have some sort of connection to, because it goes two ways. Kei te whakahoki rātou I ngā taonga kei a rātou ki te kāinga, they're giving back, or they're taking with them some new pukenga that maybe their whānau might, or their kāinga might not have seen, and vice versa. They're also getting a lot as well, you know. Some of our whānau, and I've had to ask myself this quite a bit, you know, who needs this who needs kapahaka more? Do I need the kapahaka, or does the kapahaka need me? And more often than not, you're going, actually, I need this kapahaka more than anything, you know? So I think that kapahaka provides us, doesn't matter if you're if it's a competitive team or a whakangaho team or whatever. I think kapahaka provides us with such an awesome opportunity to reconnect, an opportunity to show who you are, to whakatairanga yourself ki te ao. You know, so much awesome things happen in kapahaka, and all our whānau need to do is either is just have a little bit of I guess, how to kupu, ihi, to be able to just walk through the door. And I know that's often the hardest thing possible. It's so hard, but imagine if we could all just you know, just do that. That'd be an awesome opportunity for everyone.
I think that sums it up really nicely, because I think you know, leaving home, you get an opportunity to realize who you are when you come to a place like London, and you know, can connect with your culture here. But I think there's another step, and that's going back home to our kāinga, to our people. And you talked about that right at the beginning. Also think that there's through technology now, through Facebook, you know, people are, you know, it's a lot more easier to do that. It's not as we don't have to go for 3-4 days. You can just do one day, and plus all the learning being followed up through technology. So, you know,
what's been interesting too is, you know, watching my tawhiti, seeing some of the whānau who go over to London and then they join Ngāti Rānana, or even your kaupapa as well, Juan. You're like, wow, I didn't even, you know, because you wouldn't have seen them do kapahaka here back home, and you understand kind of the pressure or the why that might be, because it's quite hard. But you see them kind of bringing their kapahaka-ness out overseas, and it's beautiful to see. It's really awesome.
Personal connection there was my uncles spent 10 years over in London doing the circuits around there, running with the bulls and everything like that. And but I'm not sure if they were one of them, well, they both actually met their partners and wife and stuff, and over in London, went all the way to London to meet Maoris, meet up with Maoris. But talking about showing their culture, they would do kapa haka and whatnot, but it wasn't like it was a 24/7 thing for them before they went to Rānama. And then they're over there, and all of a sudden the kai haka for Hinewa at the 99 World Cup, and they're going around and becoming the kapa haka Māori superstars and stuff like that. And so for them, exactly what you're saying and what we're all been saying, the kapa haka was an awesome opportunity for them to be able to maybe reignite a fire in them that probably they had never really thought of. It's not they cared to think of, but it's just, had other things they were keen on touch or something back when they were in Aotearoa, and then they go to Rānana and they're all, we actually miss home, and there's some kapa haka. We can do this. And again, it comes back to our kapa haka as such a powerful vehicle and a medium to be able to take our people forward, and it's awesome. And keep going. If many people can do kapa haka, Māori then would be better off for it.
Yeah, totally agree. And there's a couple of people on here that you may know who have been over here and been involved in haka, and they've got Shannon James saying hard out, and Anna Morrison giving some love, and Luke Claasson's over here too. He was our chairperson of Ngāti Rānana. He's listening in. So tēnā pēr ka mutu ki konei. Just really enjoyed having you both on, and just it was a lot of fun and energy talking to you. So I just want to say thank you for giving up your time, and just some of the ideas that you shared, and just some of the beliefs that come through. I hear them from your dad coming through you, Kahurangi, and just it comes through both of you in the business. It's really warming, to be honest. So thank you. We usually finish with the waiata, and so I'd just like to leave that opportunity for you to finish off with that. Just something small.
While Kahurangi's thinking of our waiata, e mihi ana ki a koe hoa, e tino koana te ngākau, because I've got whanaunga and friends and stuff who have gone over to Ngāti Rānana, and you've provided them with a home away from home and an avenue to be able to kohi pūtea to survive, and they're doing it through kapa haka, from your Lukes and stuff, ki tērā Māori, and through Otene and Lewis and all of them. It's been really cool, and actually a little bit like look at Otene, he's over doing big mihis to everyone. Good on him. So e tino mihi ana ki a koe hoa, e tino mei kore te momo pene i a koe nā, e whakatairanga ana I tō tātou ahurea ki te ao, ko kore pēr a tātou iwi, e whiti atu ana ki Rānana, ki ngā wāhi pera I Rānana, e whai wāhi ki te whakarauora I a rātou anō, a tinama, a wairua anō hoki. Nō reire, mihi ana ki a koe chief, me te mana ko ia ka puta tātou ki te whai au ki te o Mārama, and then you can continue to do, it's not Ngāti Rānana, is it the Manaia, is it? Was that your...
Yeah, Manaia, and Haka Works and Manaia is what we do, yeah. Yeah. And Ngāti Rānana is a really important part of our community here, of course.
Totally. Yeah. I look at the the different te karere stories or whatever, must be when a reporter goes over to Rānana for a couple months and they want to contract in some stories to te karere or something like that. They always go and visit Ngāti Rānana. And I look at how packed that Kiwi house is or whatever with kapa haka, and they're all singing Po Kare Kare Ana or whatever the song is. It's awesome. So tēnā koe, tēnā koutou.
Kia ora. Thank you. Bye. Good to play.
Titahi waiata.
E pai ake ngā mea paku.
Yeah, nā tika.
We're talking about kapa haka, I've got no waiatas. You put me on the spot. No. kia tai mai koe ki te kāinga, e hoa, kia hauki mai koe ki te kāinga, or maybe when our borders or whatever open up, and ka kite au I a koe, we can fulfill te rārangi mutunga o tēnei waiata, mea ana, he ko nui, he koroa po, rotaka te marama, he ko nui, he koroa, he ki he pate, potai, he ko nui, he koroa, hariru, taua. So, a tōna wā, I cut out about 7 lines of that waiata, but
Kia tai ki te mutunga.
kia tai ki te mutunga,
Kia
ka hariru
hariru.
anō, ka tū pito tangata ki te pito tangata, and then maybe we can have a beer.
We'd love that. Ngā
Or
mihi.
a cup of tea.